The INFJ personality type is often described as rare, deep, and complex. They care deeply about others. They see beneath the surface. They feel emotions that many people overlook. And they often take on the role of counselor, guide, or quiet support in their social circles. But what if that description still doesn't quite fit you? What if you've always identified as an INFJ, but felt there was something different about how you move through the world? What if, even among INFJs, you felt more distant, more independent, more private, less focused on group connection, and more focused on your own direction? That difference might mean you're not just an INFJ. You might be a Sigma INFJ. A Sigma INFJ is a variation of the INFJ personality. They carry the same depth, intuition, and quiet intelligence, but they take it in a different direction. Instead of focusing on connection and harmony like many INFJs do, Sigma INFJs focus on freedom. They live more independently. They question everything. They don't rely on systems, approval, or outside feedback to decide who they are. The Sigma INFJ still has a heart that sees and feels deeply, but they're not tied to social roles. They won't play a part just to be liked. They stay back, observe, and often move alone, not because they dislike people, but because they're protecting something inside them that needs space to grow. In this video, we're going to explore 6 signs that show you're not just an INFJ. You're a Sigma INFJ. These signs show up in small decisions, private moments, and the way you carry yourself when no one's watching. They are not learned traits. They are instincts. If they sound like you, it's because this is who you've always been, long before you had a name for it. Let's start with the first sign. Sign number 1. You stay outside the system. Most people, even introverts, find some comfort in belonging. They join groups, follow systems, and accept the rules of the spaces they enter. Many INFJs even take on roles within those groups. They become the quiet helper, the supportive friend, the one others turn to. They might not love attention, but they still try to fit in where they can be of use. But the Sigma INFJ doesn't look for a place to fit. They observe systems, then stay just outside of them. From school to the workplace, from family gatherings to social events, you've likely always felt like an observer. You understand what's happening. You can see the dynamics. You may even predict how things will go before they happen. But even when you know the rules, something in you resists following them. Not out of anger. Not out of rebellion. Just because they don't feel right for you. You don't want to be pulled into someone else's structure. You don't want to be assigned a role that limits who you are. You may play along for a while, just enough to keep the peace or do what's required, but you always hold something back. You never give the system your full attention. You never let it define you. This shows up in small and big ways. In school, you may have respected certain teachers, but disliked the structure. You may have gotten good grades, but questioned what you were learning. In jobs, you might do your work well, but feel uncomfortable with hierarchy, rules, or company culture. You don't like being told what to do unless it makes real sense. You prefer clarity over authority. Even in friendships or communities, you keep some distance. You want connection, but not at the cost of your freedom. If a group expects too much from you, if it pressures you to act a certain way or hold certain beliefs, you quietly step back. You won't argue. You just leave. Not to make a scene, but because the fit is wrong. Other people might say you're standoffish, or that you isolate too much. But what they don't see is that you're protecting your identity. You've seen what happens when people give themselves away to systems that don't serve them. You won't be one of them. You stay outside the system not to feel superior, but to stay honest. You can't fake your way into belonging. You have to feel it deep down. And if that feeling isn't there, you stay on the edge, watching, thinking, waiting for something real. Sign number 2. You choose solitude over noise. A lot of INFJs value alone time. It helps them recharge, reflect, and process the world around them. But for the Sigma INFJ, solitude is something even more personal. It's not just helpful. It's necessary. It's not a break from life. It's where you return to your natural state. If you're a Sigma INFJ, solitude isn't just about being alone. It's about reconnecting with yourself. It's the one place where you don't have to translate your thoughts into words. You don't have to smile. You don't have to hold space for someone else's emotions. You just exist, clear, quiet, and true. In public or social settings, you often feel the energy of the room. You pick up on emotions that aren't yours. You track the pace of conversation. You sense what people need, what they expect, and how they see you. Even if you're good at reading the room and responding, it costs you something. Solitude is where you heal from that cost. It's not sadness or loneliness. It's like returning home. You might spend hours doing something that looks simple on the outside, walking, writing, reading, sitting in silence. But inside, you're rebuilding. You're sorting through feelings that didn't belong to you. You're clearing out noise. You're finding clarity again. Even in close relationships, you need space. You might love someone deeply, but you still need time apart. You need moments that are completely yours, where no one's voice, energy, or presence is shaping your thoughts. And if someone tries to invade that space or take it personally, it creates tension. You don't want to hurt anyone, but you also can't give up your solitude. This need for space doesn't come from emotional distance. It comes from depth. You feel things strongly. You carry weight that others don't see. And the only way to stay grounded is to step away from the world long enough to feel your own rhythm again. To others, your solitude might look like silence. But to you, it's sound. It's balance. It's remembering who you are when no one's watching. Sign number 3. You don't explain yourself. Most people feel the need to be understood. When someone questions their choices, they rush to explain. When people don't get their personality, they try to make it make sense. But if you're a Sigma INFJ, you don't feel that same pressure. You live from a place of quiet knowing, and that means you often move through life without trying to justify yourself to anyone. This doesn't mean you think you're better than others. It means you've learned that some things don't need to be explained. Your values, your decisions, and your energy come from within. If someone understands you, that's great. If they don't, you keep moving. This mindset shows up in daily life. You might choose a job that others don't understand, but you don't feel the need to defend it. You might walk away from a friendship, and when someone asks why, you keep it simple. You don't get into long stories. You just say it didn't feel right anymore. You know the full reason inside yourself, and that's enough. You may be polite when people question you, but you don't feel the need to open up your whole inner world for approval. You protect your thoughts. You hold your beliefs close. And when you do speak your truth, it's never for attention. It's because it needed to be said. This also means you don't argue to be right. If someone misunderstands your intentions, you might correct them once, but you won't beg them to see the full picture. If they're not ready to understand, you let them go. You've learned that your energy is too valuable to waste on people who are only half listening. The Sigma INFJ trusts that the right people will understand them without much effort. The rest aren't meant to stay. And that belief keeps them from oversharing, over-explaining, or over-apologizing. They move through life with quiet direction, guided by something deeper than anyone else can see. You don't explain yourself because you don't need to. Your actions are enough. Your presence is enough. And if someone doesn't see that, you keep going anyway. Sign number 4. You walk away easily. Most people hold on, even when something no longer fits. They stay in relationships too long. They stick with groups that drain them. They try to fix broken systems, broken friendships, or broken expectations, even when nothing changes. But the Sigma INFJ has a different instinct. They don't cling. They walk away, quietly, cleanly, and with full confidence in their decision. This doesn't come from being cold or detached. In fact, Sigma INFJs feel things deep. They give more chances than most. They try to understand others, offer support, and see beyond surface behavior. But once they reach their limit, they don't explain. They don't beg and they don't create drama. They just go. You may have done this many times in your life. You gave someone time, space, and understanding. You tried to work with a group or play a role. You told yourself things might change. But when the truth became clear, that the space wasn't right for you, you left. And once you were gone, you didn't look back. This ability to walk away is part of your strength. It means you're not tied to comfort. You don't need to be liked, included, or praised to feel whole. You're willing to lose connections in order to stay true to yourself. It also means you pay close attention to energy. You sense when something shifts, when a space turns toxic, when someone starts draining you, or when your presence is no longer respected. You don't need a big reason or dramatic event. You just feel that the time has come to move on, and you listen to that. Some people may say you give up too fast. But what they don't see is how long you waited before making that choice. You don't walk away on impulse. You walk away after giving your full heart and realizing it was no longer being met. The Sigma INFJ doesn't chase what's not meant for them. They don't fight to stay where they're shrinking. They value peace more than people-pleasing. So when something no longer feels aligned, they leave. Not out of spite, but out of deep respect for their own path. Sign number 5. You sense power without chasing it. Some people chase power directly. They want titles, recognition, or control. They talk louder, stand taller, and try to influence others through status or attention. But the Sigma INFJ doesn't work that way. They sense power, but they don't need to hold it to understand it. You often walk into a room and feel who's really leading, even if that person says nothing. You notice who controls the mood, who people look to for direction, and who speaks just to be heard. You don't say much, but you see everything. And that quiet awareness gives you a kind of power others can't explain. The difference is, you don't use it for control. You don't try to lead just because you can. You lead when it's needed. You speak when it matters. You influence others not by pushing them, but by holding steady to your values. This makes you hard to read, and even harder to manipulate. People can feel your presence even if you're silent. They may not know why, but something about you commands attention. It's not because you're loud or bold. It's because you're grounded. You know who you are. You don't pretend. You don't chase approval. And that kind of self-possession is rare. You also understand subtle forms of control. You notice when someone's words don't match their energy. You sense hidden motives. You read people's intentions before they've said much. And while you don't always call it out, you adjust your distance accordingly. This natural awareness gives you strength, but you don't show it off. You don't take credit for it. You simply live it. And that's what sets you apart from others who seek to climb, impress, or dominate. The Sigma INFJ doesn't need the spotlight to know their own power. They carry it quietly, read the room clearly, and let others reveal themselves. They don't chase control. They just stay aware and move with precision. Sign number 6. You value truth more than approval. Most people, even those with strong values, still care how they're seen. They want to be liked. They want approval from family, friends, co-workers, or strangers online. And sometimes they'll hold back their real thoughts just to avoid conflict. But the Sigma INFJ values something else more than approval, truth. That doesn't mean you go around arguing with everyone. It doesn't mean you speak harshly or force your opinion into every conversation. It means that when something matters, when a moment calls for honesty, you won't stay silent, even if it makes others uncomfortable. You've likely been in situations where staying quiet would have been easier. Maybe a friend was doing something unhealthy, or a group was going along with a lie, or a leader was acting without integrity. You felt the tension. You knew what was expected, to agree, to smile, to move on. But something inside you said no. You couldn't pretend. So you spoke up. Or you left. Or you quietly refused to join in. You didn't do it to prove anything. You did it because living in truth is more important to you than being liked. This choice can lead to loneliness. Some people won't understand it. They'll think you're too intense, too serious, or too proud. But what they don't see is that this isn't about ego. It's about staying aligned with what you know is right. You've learned that fake peace isn't real peace. Being accepted for someone you're not feels worse than being alone. And even if your truth costs you a connection, you'd rather live with that loss than live in a lie. This doesn't make you cold. It makes you honest. It means your kindness is real, not forced. Your support is earned, not automatic. And your words, when you do speak, actually carry weight, because people know you mean what you say. You're not trying to be difficult. You're trying to be real. And that makes you stronger than anyone who needs a crowd to feel secure. The Sigma INFJ lives for truth, even when it costs them approval. Because in the end, they know peace doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being in full alignment with yourself. Being an INFJ already sets you apart. You feel deeply. You see patterns most people miss. You care more than you show. But being a Sigma INFJ takes that to another level. It means you don't just think differently, you live differently. You don't need to be the center of attention. You don't need to belong to every group. You don't need constant validation. You follow your own path, not to be different, but because it's the only one that feels true. You stay outside the system because you see what it demands. You choose solitude because it gives you clarity. You don't explain yourself because you don't need to. You walk away when things no longer fit. You sense power but never chase it. And most of all, you value truth over being liked. These signs don't show up in loud ways. You won't always be noticed. But the people who matter will feel it. They'll see the calm in how you carry yourself. They'll feel the weight in your words. And they'll respect the quiet strength that comes from living in alignment with your own truth. If these signs sound familiar, you're not just an INFJ. You're something rarer. You're a Sigma INFJ, and that means your life will look different from most. It will be deeper, quieter, and more authentic. And that's exactly how it's meant to be.